Okay, we talked about factoring by looking for a greatest common factor, and that will always be our first step. But there's also a special way of factoring what's called a quadratic trinomial. And that's a little incorrect because what I'm going to say also works for quadratic binomials. But a couple things. A quadratic can't have more than 3 terms. So the general quadratic is x squared plus x plus some constant. Now you know that x could have some coefficient, so we usually call that b. And you might be thinking, why b? Well, that's c, and we'll put a here. Charlie's in the greenhouse, so if you hear her barking, just ignore that for a second. All right, sorry. So let me put that back up. We had ax squared plus bx plus c. This is called a quadratic 1, 2, 3 trinomial. This is the general quadratic trinomial. I will refer to what's a, what's b, and what's c, and your job is to just know that a is the coefficient of x squared, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant. To make our life a little easier right now, we're only going to worry about quadratic trinomials where a is equal to 1. So notice that there's no number here. That's like having a 1. So we're going to learn there's a special way that these factor. And this should look familiar. After the first part of chapter 9, we were multiplying things that look like this out. And we were finding that when we multiplied all this out, we would get x squared minus x minus 6. Again, I can do it quickly, so I skipped the whole first, outside, inside, last, and jumped right to the answer. Notice that this is a quadratic trinomial. So the question is, how do we go back from here to this? That's called factoring. So if we take a look, we know how to do this. We know how to take x plus 3 times x plus 8. We know that when we do that, what we're doing is first products, x squared, outside products, plus 8x, inside products, plus 3x, last products, plus 24. Then we're collecting like terms, and we're getting x squared plus 11x plus 24. The question becomes, how do we then go backwards when it's called factoring? How do we go backwards when it's called factoring? So we're going to do this a lot. And when we practice this, we can do this pretty quickly and efficiently. So let's do a couple examples. All right. So let's just take a look at that last one we did. X squared plus 11x plus 24. So here are the rules. I'm just going to give you a set of rules, and these rules will always work if you follow them. The first rule is look at the constant. Find the constant. The constant is positive 24. Positive matters. Know if it's positive or negative. With that constant, list the factors of 24. I always try to list them in order. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. 5 does not go into it. 6 does, but I've already listed it. If you list in order, you'll make sure you get them all. And you need to get all of them. It's kind of like Pokemon. You want to catch them all, because if you don't, you might miss how this actually factors. So the second step is, because it's positive, our second step is add factors. And when we add factors, we're looking for B. We're trying to find an 11. 1 plus 24 is 25. That's not it. 2 plus 12 is 14. That's not it. 4 plus 6 is 10. That's not it. And yes, I skipped this one intentionally because 3 plus 11 is 8. That's the one. So now, your next step is to take a parenthesis and a parenthesis. I know the first number is going to be an x and the first number here is going to be an x. That's how I get x squared. I know the last number is going to be a 3 and this number is going to be an 8 because that's how I get a 24. And I'm going to get a 3x and an 8x because that's how I'm going to get 11. Now, I have not put a plus or minus sign here because that all depends on what this sign is. The last number is 24, and the only way to get a 24 with a 3 and an 8 is take 3 times 8 or take negative 3 times negative 8. Well, if it was negative 3 and negative 8, that would make this a negative 11x. It's not negative, so I know it should be plus 3 and plus 8. So let's review the rules. The rules are, look at the constant. If that constant is positive, list all the factors and add them looking for the middle term. That's the second step, adding these factors to find the middle term. If the constant is positive, the signs are plus plus or minus minus, and you'll know by looking right there. Now that was a lot of information. Rewatch that if you need to get some more stuff. I'll give a practice problem here, and you can try it. So, practice problem. What is x squared plus 6x plus 5? How does that factor? Start with 5. List the factors of 5. I was really nice to you with this one. Those are it. What are the factors of 5? 1 and 5. Add those up. Why are we adding? Because this is positive. Those added together equals 6. Is that the middle term? It is. So we can write this. X with a 1, x with a 6. The signs are plus plus or minus minus because the only way to get a that's a mistake. You caught it. Sorry. X with a 1 and x with a 5. The signs are plus plus or minus minus because the only way to get a positive 5 here is to multiply positive 1 times positive 5 or negative 1 times negative 5. I know if it's a positive and a positive if this is positive. Good? Let's try another one. X squared plus 12x plus 35. So, list the factors of 35. 1 and 35. 2, no. 3, no. 4, no. 5 and 7. 6, no. 7, yes, but I've already listed it. So there are the factors. Because this is a plus, I add these factors. 1 plus 35 is not 12. 5 plus 7 is 12. So, x with a 5, x with a 7. It's plus plus or minus minus. I get it from here. So plus plus. Let's try another one. X squared minus 10x plus 21. List the factors of 21. 1 and 21. 2, no. 3 and a 7. 4, no. 5, no. 6, no. 7, yes, but I've already listed it, so I've got all the factors. Add factors looking for 10. We're adding these because this is positive. There they are. 3 and 7. X with a 3, x with a 7. The signs here are plus plus or minus minus because this is a positive. 3 times 7 is 21, but negative 3 times negative 7 is also 21. So I need to know if it's negative or positive. I get the sign right here. It's minus minus. All right. Now, you're probably thinking, every example we've done has been when this is positive. So what happens when it's negative? Well, the rules are x squared plus bx plus c. Look at the constant. When I said list the factors of the constant, and in step 2, so 1, factors of c. All of them. Got to get all of them. Got to catch them all. 2. When I said it's positive, we're going to add factors. Well, what do you think we're going to do if it's negative? We're going to subtract factors. So, if I had something like x squared minus 10x minus 24, I'm going to take the factors of 24, 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. And I'm going to subtract these numbers. 24 minus 1 is 23. That's not 10. 8 minus 3 is 5. That's not 10. 6 minus 4 is 2. That's not 10. 12 minus 2 is 10. That's the one I want. So I'm going to write x with a 2 and x with a 12. Now, when this is a negative, the only way to get a negative is take a negative times a positive or a positive times a negative. One of these numbers has to be negative, the other one has to be positive. And it's pretty easy. Look here. If that's negative, the bigger number gets a negative. If it was positive, the bigger number would be positive. And the other one gets the opposite sign. So what makes factoring hard is kids mess up those rules and they don't subtract factors when it's negative, or they think about these rules here. And they get them confused. So you got to get those rules straight. Rewatch that last part of the video if you need to. Here's some practice problems with minus signs at the end. X squared minus 5x minus 6. Factors of 6, 1 and 6, 2 and 3. This is actually one of my favorite factoring problems. 3 minus 2 is 1, and a lot of kids will choose this as the answer because they add them, but we're not adding, we're subtracting. 6 minus 1 is 5, so it's x with a 1 and x with a 6. Bigger number gets this sign. That gets a positive. Positive 1 times negative 6 is negative 6. If you multiply this out, you would get x squared minus 6x plus 1 minus 6. Do you see how that would simplify to the same thing up here? Remember, our final answer is the factored form. This is our answer, not this. This is just a check. Let's try another one. X squared minus 15x minus, 15 was a bad number. How about minus 16? So list the factors of 16. 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 3 no, 4 and 4. I'm done. Because I've got the same number here. 5 no, 6 no, 7 no, 8's right there. Subtract those factors. 4 minus 4 is 0. 8 minus 2, 6. 16 minus 1, 15. There it is. X with a 1, x with a 16. Bigger number gets this sign. Other one gets a positive. Good? Now, there are times when you try to factor a quadratic trinomial and you get something like this. X squared plus 10x minus 3. And you list the factors of 3, and you say 1 and 3, and you subtract them, and you say 3 minus 1 is 2, and 2 is not 10. Well, that means does not factor. On the next test, there will be, in the directions, it'll say factor completely. If it doesn't factor, write does not factor. I'm never going to put a whole page of problems that don't factor, but there might be one, maybe two. But it never fails that I have a kid write on a whole page, does not factor, and it's like, oh, come on. I wouldn't do that to you. So always follow the rules, and it'll all work out.